Okay, let's talk about the internet for a few minutes. It's the kind of thing, everything needs internet. And I bet that your entire life runs on the internet, but I also bet that you pay no attention to said internet and the importance of it in your life, which is why every time it breaks, you freak out and your life falls apart. I'm Sean. I've been in tech now for 25 plus years and run this channel to try and talk about tech things and make you smarter and help people along. So one of our businesses is an ISP. Something that gets me a lot is simply that clients rely so heavily on connectivity. It's like it literally is like the end of the world if they don't have it. But every single client we get to, every single install we do, we get negotiated down in price. People are like, no, I want to pay less for it. And I'm talking about your entire connectivity bill is less than 10% of your rental. Now, I understand property is expensive and offices, etc. But like your office is that expensive and you're prepared to spend that kind of money on it. Cool. But your connectivity is probably more important. And so people just have like this one internet connection and their entire lives depend on it. So let me let you in on a little secret. Internet breaks. It breaks a lot. And in fact, if you understood how the internet fits together, how it works in the world, how every ISP relies on every other ISP to make it work, we have BGP sessions and routers and peering and exchanges and all that kind of stuff. If you understood how that all fits together, it's an absolute miracle that any of this even works anyway. So at some point, it's going to break. At some point, you're going to sit in your office, you're going to look around, and you're not going to have any internet. And you're going to have a little mild freak out. So like it doesn't have to be this way. There are better ways. It's one, redundancy. Okay, so like redundancy comes in many forms. Like you can have redundancy in like I have two internet connections that are identical, and if one goes down, I'll fail over to the other one. I've got that at home, right? So like I pay for two different providers at home. Make sure that if one goes down, I fail over to the other one. Can't be without internet. I run an IT company. Connectivity companies, so like kind of important. But in addition to that, I also make sure that I have a very flexible data package on my phone, right? So I pay for some data and it does auto top up. So if I'm somewhere, if in the event my entire network at home went down, I could hotspot onto my phone, got a 5G connection, I can carry on working for hours and hours and hours. Yes, it costs money. Doing business costs money. Like you need to understand this. So that's like the sort of top end forms of redundancy. Another form of redundancy really is like if you're at work and in the office the internet goes down, like can you pack up, go home and carry on working there? Right? So you have a second internet, it's just not on the same location, you go work somewhere else. How does that play out for your staff? Can you have 5G routers in the office? Like there's a lot of different stuff you can do to get redundancy. But what is absolutely critical and what's really important is like you have to have redundancy. You have to have some kind of plan. So I'm just throw some numbers around for you. If an ISP says to you that they have an uptime of 98%, you'd think to yourself, well, that's pretty good. 98% is good. You know what that last 2% ends up being? If you work that out in like, if you annualize it, it is 172 hours a year that they could still be down and still meet their SLA target. So they would still be up for 98% of the year if they were down for 172 hours. That's a lot of hours. If those hours are inside business hours, like those are days and days and days and days of you not having internet. It's like having an outage, being down for 2 or 3 hours, it happens in businesses. Sometimes it can be a day or two. We've got ISPs here in South Africa, home ISPs, where recently they were down for like 3 or 4 days and people freaking out because everybody's working from home and the internet's so important, but it's also like, where you can't get the cheapest internet from. Like those two things are just not congruent. Like they just like don't gel, they don't mesh. Think about your connectivity. Think about like how important is this to you? Like I had somebody the other day, they also had an outage and it was only a couple of hours and they were like, oh, like if I'm down for like 2 or 3 hours, like my boss is gonna fire me. I was like, if it's that important to you, get some data on your phone, learn to hotspot. If it's that important to you, get a 5G router or an LTE router where you can like buy data on demand. There are so many options and so many packages for that kind of thing. Get a cheap wireless link to your house. In South Africa, at least, we are like overrun with WISPs. So like that's easy to do. If you're earning well enough, then like get 2 fiber connections. I know it's expensive. I pay for 2, but it is that important to me. Like, my wife works from home. I work from home a lot. My son studies from home. Like, we need internet. Like, without it, it's like the world stops. So it's like a worthwhile investment not to have the frustration, not to have the outages. And the cost there is, so like, you know, if you are paying double your internet, whatever that extra cost for redundancy is, like, work it out on an annual basis. And it might be, you know, a few $1,000 or $1,000 or whatever. But then look at your staff, look at your team, look at your business and go like, if we are down for 172 hours in the year, which is more expensive? Is it more expensive to pay for an extra router or an extra link? Or is it more expensive to have my staff, who I'm paying salaries to, sitting around idle while we wait for the ISP to replace a switch or do firmware updates or that kind of thing? It's like, you have to look at this as like a business expense. It's like, it's simple math. Like, which is more expensive? Where do you lose the most? And I'm going to venture to bet, if you're any more than like 2 people, 3 people, it is more expensive for you to have staff sitting by idly doing nothing than it is for you to get a second connection, a fiber connection, a LTE connection, a wireless connection, whatever. Or make sure all your staff, if you're working in the cloud, make sure all your staff have good connectivity at home, so that in the event you have an outage, you can all just go home and you can carry on working there for the rest of the day or the afternoon, whatever. But I think we deal with so many customers who just have this expectation of, we've bought internet and this thing can never break. It never goes down. And that's not realistic. That's just not the way the world works. It's just not the way the internet works. So use it, don't use it. But if your business relies on internet, please get yourself some kind of failover or redundancy.